Before we jump into the episode, I wanted to let you know about something that is so exciting that we have on the forefront. We will soon be releasing a course called Brand Belief, which is all about how to build a brand that you and your clients believe in. This goes far beyond just selecting a logo and a few colors to go with it. This is an intuitive journey about your customers' needs, their desires, their values, and how you can make their lives easier through the services that you provide. This is about how you can be of service in this world through a brand that has both longevity and legacy attached to it. Click the link in the description. That will tell you a bit more information, and it will allow you to sign up so that you can be notified when this course is launching. Now we hope you enjoy the episode. Hi everyone, this is Ariana here from Well-Fed Photography, and I'm so excited to have Johanna Schoeffert from Johanna King Photography here with us today to have a chat. And while I do feel like I know Johanna well enough to introduce her, I'm going to let her introduce herself. Johanna, can you tell us a bit about who you are, and then we'll jump into what you do professionally in a few minutes.
Hi, thanks, Ariana. So I'm Johanna. I am originally from France. I arrived in Ireland in 2007. I'm married to an Irishman, and I had a daughter who is 6 now. I live in Dublin, and I am a photographer. And I used to be a graphic designer before, so I think that's kind of a quick introduction of who I am.
I love that. And I have to ask as well, I've never actually asked you this before, but is Schoeffert your married name and King is your maiden name? Or just for anyone who's wondering?
No, the other way around. So Schoeffert is my maiden name, and King is my husband's name. And I picked King specifically for my business because my maiden name is really hard to spell, and it's not very, I mean, even just for a domain name, if you have to tell people, okay, it's Johanna Schoeffert, Schoeffert, yes. They'll be like, well, stop, wait a minute. So that's the reason.
That makes so much sense. And it's funny because I didn't actually take my husband's last name. I never have officially taken it, but I started using it after last year because of his support with doing the book of breastfeeding stories was so tremendous. I was like, okay, I'm taking your name on with the business and with the book because it's my ode to you for all of your support. So I had to ask because I was wondering about your own. So you mentioned being a photographer, and what type of photography services do you typically offer?
So I did a bit of everything, but my main work now will be documentary family sessions, and that's what I enjoy the most and what makes my heart sing.
And you're so brilliant at it. You're just so amazing. I love your work. And I'm wondering what drew you to that, because I feel like you were very ahead of the curve because it's become more popular in recent years, but you were already going that direction years ago. So what made you fall in love with it? What made you even aware that it was a type or a style of photography?
So I think, like a lot of people, it may have been what I would be doing as like my personal work. But then when you start opening a business, you look at what others are doing, and then you start by doing what you think you should be doing, or you start by doing what you think people want. But then even when you start doing sessions like in a more lifestyle way, you realize that you capture a lot of the in-between moments, and then that's what you love taking, and then that's what your clients are actually loving more. They're like, oh, we love those ones, but we really like the one you caught of him before we actually started doing the portrait. So then, as you say, what made me aware that it was even a possibility business-wise, then I found the group or the website, I can't remember, of Mary Moss from Fearless and Framed. So she actually had a group called Goodbye Posing Guide, and then she had resources, and then the community around that, just discovering that actually you could have it as a business was just a revelation. It was like so freeing. I can actually do only the in-between moments. I can just do what I like to do, and then there will be people out there who want that. So
yes, it's so funny because whenever I was a photojournalist years ago, so I was working for a newspaper, and so it was shooting in a very documentary style, but didn't know that that's what it was. And so then later it was kind of like you said, it was like a revelation once I realized I could apply that to families. It just opened so many possibilities. And when you, like you had said, whenever you have something that touches your heart, like that's really what you want to do. Like
Yeah.
that's how you can be of your highest service to your clients. So and you had mentioned on your Facebook page, I think years ago too, that if ever something catastrophic happened to your home, like whether it's a house fire or something like that, one of the first things you would think to do is grab your family albums. So has that always been something that was what you cared about, or that you thought to grab, or is that something that came along later?
No, that's actually something that I reflected on. You know, when they ask you, has photography, how did it start? So you go back to your childhood, and my father was the one taking a lot of photographs, and then I had my first camera quite early on. But what I really cherished were my albums that my parents had put together. So my dad would take the photo, the prints would arrive, and then my mom would put the prints for me and my siblings, you know, in little albums, be all lined up, and I would really cherish them because of the photographs in them with my grandparents and then me as a baby. And then I can't explain why they meant so much to me, but I was always drawn to the past and what happened. So I would be lying in my bed as a kid, imagining, okay, what if the house goes on fire? I don't know. I'm sure all kids go through that phase. And I was like, what would I take with me? And the first thing I thought was I would take the albums, throw them into the grass, and then jump after them. And I would think to myself, like, you know, you think of books, of toys, of money, of everything. And just as a kid, I would think all of those are replaceable. All of those I can go and buy again. But those albums, those photos, if they burn down, they're gone, and there will be no way to get them back. I mean, that's it. It's as simple as that. And I didn't think more of it, but that was that instinct. So when later on as an adult, you know, people asked you to reflect on your photography journey, you're like, actually, yes, I did value photography from a very young age.
And is this why you decided to offer your clients physical printed products as well?
Yeah, I think also with the advent of technology and digital files, I just realized how people don't have the time to do anything with them anymore. And I can see even myself on my personal photos how quickly I can get behind, and they just pile up and they pile up and they pile up. And then the overwhelm is like, I'm never going to get time to do anything with them, sort them out and get them printed. And asking clients, you know, if you give them the digitals and asking them 5 years later, not me, but you hear other photographers ask their clients, so what did you do with your photographs from 5 years ago? And they're like, well, nothing. I never got a chance to print them. Wedding couples never getting an album printed. And I was like, okay, so why would you go through the expense of hiring a photographer and getting family photos done if you've never done anything with them? I don't think photos are just for like looking at once and then be done with it. They just have they become more powerful as time goes by. So yeah, I mean, if there are ways to enjoy photos digitally, there are. I do find that print is just that little bit more powerful and lasting, really, which is really paradoxical because they can burn, but yet they seem to last longer.
Yeah, that's the amazing thing. Actually, I was on a chat with Eugene from InPhoto, and he was talking about how regardless of how fast technology changes, print will always be relevant. It has remained relevant for the past, 100 or more years. And there's something that's just so special about being able to hold them, physically feel and hold them in your hands.
And the time, something that's very, like the ones that I have printed in albums, I won't lie and say that I look at the albums every day. That's not true. But the ones I have on my walls, I pass them every day. And if I take those few, even 30 seconds, let's say you stop and you look at that image for 30 seconds, who today look at a photo for 30 full seconds on the screen? Like one photo, take it all in, look at the details, look at the colors, look at everything for 30 seconds. No, I can't do it. You just click and you get to the next one, and you click, you get to. So a print just allows you to pause and really absorb it and enjoy it many, many, many times again. So Yeah.
Yes. There's just something so powerful about it. It's like, I think sometimes you can't put it into words, which actually brings me to my next question. And that was, I always talk about being able to feel photographs. Like, that a photograph is special when you can feel it. And I'm wondering if if you feel the same, and two, what types of things that you hope your clients feel when they look back on the photographs you've taken for them.
Yeah, so that's something I actually been reflecting on a lot, because to me in photography, there are like two things that live side by side, and there's the meaning, and then there's all of the technical things, like to actually take a better photo, to learn about settings, to learn about light, to learn about composition, to learn about all of the things that make a photo a better one. Yet all those things could be done and the photo can be meaningless, like can be just perfect but mean nothing. And on the other end, I was reflecting on how a photo from your childhood, which might be blurry and blown out and all of this, can just be the most precious photo and mean so much and make you feel so much. So as the professional photographer, you kind of tend to focus on this and not as enough on this. So I'm trying to balance both, and it's a great journey. But to come back on the feelings, I think there are just so many feelings. Like one of them is warmth. To look at a photo and just to feel warm and cozy and happy, just because it brings back happy feelings. But I don't think it should be only positive, and I think photos can also make you feel a bit sad and longing of something or emotional, and that's okay too. There are mixed feelings. Yeah, I don't think it has to be only all positive all the time.
I'm like smiling here because I'm thinking of, for anyone who doesn't know, Johanna's done a few sessions of me and my own family, because I am the type of photographer who, like you said, like I would just fall behind. So I'd rather hire another photographer to do it for me. But it's making me think of the photographs of my son. Do you remember I was going to dress him, and it was he was like going through this range of emotions. At first, he's really excited about the shirt that I've picked out for him, and he's really pumped. And then when it comes time to actually put it on him, he's like all of a sudden upset, and like, no, that's not the shirt I want. But it's like, it goes through the full range of emotions, and it's like, it's kind of like a funny setting to see him go through the range of emotions, because any parent who has a toddler just knows that that's one of those toddler moments. But I'm so happy that we have them to look back on, and that maybe he can laugh about whenever he's a parent, versus sometimes seeing photo sessions where it is only smiles, and it is only the kind of like quote unquote picture perfect moments that so many people think of. So what I love is that you honor the full range of emotions, and that you are open to capturing them all.
Well, as you said, like for me, the humor, like honestly, kids, I think they're just the most amazing beings, because they're not self-conscious and they do things just, spontaneously. Some of them are so expressive. So, I mean, they're funny. They're not trying to be, but they're funny. So first I'm drawn to the humor. And I mean, yes, I do want the parents to laugh, and in a nice way. It's not like you're making fun of it, but there's that. And then the other side that I think is missing, and not everyone is sensitive to it, but I do find that photographing the challenges and the struggles, they make them real. Like, it's not like you look back at your photos 10 years later and you're like, was our life just perfect? Did I make it up? But I remember things being hard. Why is not reflected in photo? Was it me? I mean, I had times, I'll say that the first 2.5 years as a mother were beautiful, but they were really, really tough, because I was sleep deprived, and I didn't know what sleep deprivation was until I went through it for 2.5 years. So part of those years were really hard for me inside. But then looking back at photos one day, I was like, there are no photos of me trying to get her to sleep. There are no photos of me looking absolutely exhausted. There are no photos of me, let's say, crying because I look down and there's something on the floor I have to pick up. I'm not saying I would have needed all of those photographs, but it felt like I wasn't real. So I don't know. I do think photos of hardship are also important to just make them. I can't find the word. Maybe you'll find that word just to, tell me which word
You
I'm
get
looking
to
for.
probably number one, validate the fact that
That's it.
sometimes there are struggles. You get to acknowledge them, and you kind of get to honor them because they are a part of life and they are worthy of being seen. And I think actually I remember you doing a post, maybe was it during one of your family holidays, and maybe your husband had taken a few photos and you were having a parenting moment with your daughter, and that was when it sparked for you, like, oh yeah, like times are tough sometimes, like parenting is challenging sometimes.
Yeah, but we tend to shy away from it, and there's also a notion of respect, especially when children are involved and they're upset and they don't want to be photographed. And it's okay when they're toddlers, and then when they get older, it's a lot more difficult, and we have to respect that. But I think there are ways to do it in a respectful way where it's not necessarily showing an upset child either when they get older. But yes, I think it's that part of acknowledging, validating, and just remembering, like telling yourself, yeah, I wasn't crazy. It wasn't all in my head. I would have a holiday, it wasn't all sunshine, and because holidays are hard with children because you're outside of your comfort of your house, and there's food and things, and so it's not all happy, and it's good to acknowledge it too.
Did it take time, like just for anyone who maybe they're interested in getting into the documentary realm of photography, or maybe someone who's interested in being photographed by a documentary photographer, like did it take time for you to become comfortable with capturing that full range of emotions, or is it something that you just did straight away?
Yeah, as a photographer, I did it straight away. But I think each photographer doing documentary sessions will be drawn to different things. So no one documentary photographer will capture the same day the same way. Like really, the voice of the photographer is going to shine through the photographs that they take, the moments that they choose to focus on or step back, and the photograph that they're actually going to pick to show to the parents. So maybe a photographer will photograph through that tantrum with the t-shirt, but then when they get to the delivery, they're just going to remove them and say, no, I don't think for them, it's not fair maybe to the child, or it doesn't ring anything, and they're going to push them out. And that's fine, because then when they're going to show the photographs on their website, the potential clients are going to see things that they want captured, and maybe they don't want those moments captured. But I show them on my website, and usually the people contacting me actually want the full range of emotions because they want to capture that part of life as well. And that's okay. We're all different, and we all value and want different things. So
Absolutely. Have you ever had any families ask you to not capture those moments?
never. I'm trying to think, like, even during the day, would I just step out if there's a moment? I don't think I've ever really stopped shooting, but I don't think I've ever had like a really, really upsetting moment where an older child is upset. If that was the case, I think I would just take down the camera, maybe take it from far away, maybe try and take a detail, or just give them time and let it happen. Usually they're smaller, so they're more forgiving. They look at you with the camera. They don't mind. They're just, and then after, when you spend so many hours with them, it's like you're part of their day. So the guard goes down, and they're like, yeah, you're part of the family. I can cry in front of you. It's okay,
Yes. How much do you feel intuition plays into what you do? Like being able to feel out those moments, or to feel like the respectfulness of what you're doing?
Yeah, I think it's something you probably either have or you don't. And I think I feel people's emotion quite a lot in my life anyway, like as a person. So I think it just plays naturally. It's the way I work. And clients have said that I have a calming presence as well, which is something I didn't know I had. It's just partly when I photograph them, instead of stressing them out because I have my camera, which they probably thought was going to happen, the way I do it seems to be making them feel calmer and also appreciate their moments. Like they're like, oh, she's photographing that, so it must be important. And I never noticed this as being important, so it just
Yes.
actually makes the day more relaxed than they they thought it was going to be.
Well, you've done obviously the full day in the life for our family, and you are such a calming presence. And I wasn't sure because we live out in the countryside, like we don't have a TV in the house, like we are a very kind of calm, as much as the kids can like have fun and be themselves, like it's a very kind of calm setting. And so I wasn't sure having someone come into that, like how comfortable they would be. But it just seemed like it was the perfect fit. And one of the things that I love that you captured throughout the day as well was like how often I was eating. Because I think my daughter was maybe like 2 months old at this stage or something. So obviously those early days of breastfeeding and all the meals that you eat, like it's just so funny because probably no one else would pick up on that, but I know. And I can, when I'm retelling the story of that time, I can talk about, eating constantly to be able to feed my daughter. And I just love those little things like that you said. Somebody else might not think it's that important, but it really means a lot to me that you photographed through that.
Yeah, it was the snacks. I just love the snack, but the snack in bed for breastfeeding. There's just that detail. No, in a normal time, you don't bring your snacks to bed, but because of breastfeeding and being there under the child, and you have the water and you have the food and you have all the things that you need. And I could relate to that. And when you're in the middle of it, it's so part of your everyday, but you don't notice how much when it's gone, it's gone.
Yes.
When I remember when my daughter was tiny, and then I didn't realize I would have to set up like a breastfeeding station in my bedroom. I had no idea that it was even a thing, but then I had a box and a bottle of water and a snack and the pads and all of this ready, because once you're stuck, you're stuck.
Yes.
And then one day I was like, oh my goodness, I need to take a snapshot of it, because when this phase is going to be over, this breastfeeding station is going to be gone. And now it's obviously gone. And when just the photo of that setup, and it's just a phone photo of a box with things on it, I can feel it all again, sitting in the middle of the night and all the things.
Yes. Let's actually talk about that, because one of the themes that runs through Well-Fed Photography is breastfeeding. And we're working on a book of breastfeeding stories. You helped capture some of the behind the scenes of us doing that. And I'm wondering for you, especially as we share a similar story in the fact that we're originally born somewhere else and we experienced motherhood in Ireland. So I'm curious to know what it was like for you to go through the breastfeeding journey, kind of away from other family members. And also I'm curious to know what you found the supports to be like here in Ireland.
Yeah, well, I don't have anything to compare it to. So I can't say whether breastfeeding in France would have been easier. The big difference, the very, very big difference, is that in France, if I had a baby where I'm from, you would have a private room, maximum 2 people. But I mean, like most people have a private room because it costs hardly nothing to ask for that private room. And then you would stay in the hospital for about 3 to 5 days until your baby starts to put on weight again. Like Ireland, word of 8 people, and you want to get out of here as quickly as possible. So I gave birth at 8 p.m. At midnight. I was back in the ward, and the next day I was asking, can I go home? And they were like, no, you can't, because I was on that domino scheme where I could go home and I would have the midwives coming at home. And they were like, no, you lost too much blood for that. We're going to see about tomorrow. So I spent the whole day. The good thing is that my mom was at home waiting for me, and my mom is a midwife. So we talked with my husband about having my mom, for a while at the birth, because some parents tell you need that time to yourself, don't have any family members, etc. But we said, look, we're going to be new to that. There's going to be plenty of time for bonding and all of those things when she goes back home, and we can do with the help. We could, the cooking and breastfeeding and all of this. And so, yeah, so she helped me because I have to say, yeah, the support in hospital for the hours there that I was there in terms of breastfeeding was close to zero. I think they have like a lactation consultant in the Rotunda or two, but they're only there from Monday to Friday from a certain times, and they will come to you really if you have an issue. But if you don't specifically ask for it, then it's not going to happen. So luckily, it wasn't like I was struggling, but like I was really, really sore, and I didn't sleep for such a long time that if I had stayed for longer without support, I think, you know, I don't know, you start being a bit delirious from it all, and you just want to ask a question, but there's nobody there. Like, you're really a little bit on your own. So, and nowadays it must be even harder. I can't even imagine how they're going through it. I just, so thankfully I went home fairly quickly, and then I had support at home. And then the midwives from the Domino schemes were great, especially one of them just showed me one way to latch that was like revolutionary for me. It was so much easier, less pain, and you know, and then once that, I think at day 5 or day 6, the pain went away, and I was like, oh, that's it? Wow. I thought, you know, when you're in the midst of it, it's so hard that you think, oh, will I last long? But then when it's gone, for me anyway, it was gone fairly quickly, and it was like a breeze. And I was like, well, now I can keep going, you know, as long as as long as she wants. If it is like this, it's easy, you know.
Yes. We, through Well-Fed Photography, we created a group called, a Facebook group called Share Your Breast or Chest Feeding Story. And so I'm curious to know, for you, did it help to see other people's stories in like Facebook groups and that sort of thing when you're going through your journey?
Yeah, I did join Quidu. I joined one of the group before having my daughter, which was great because they said, look, come before so you get a sense of where it is, the breastfeeding group. So once you have your baby, you won't have to worry about going. There'll be a lot of that gone. So I went to that group, and it was great to just look at other mothers breastfeed, the ones that went through, you know, a few babies, and how, I don't know, it's like you observe and you learn from that. I also went to there was an HSC one close to me as well. So I would go through that. And again, you're just chatting. And it's more than just chatting about breastfeeding. I think it's suddenly you're with other people going through the same phase in their baby's life, and you can talk about anything. And through the Quidu groups and that group, I learned about schools, that you have to actually put your child's name into school when they're 3 months old. And I was like, what? Now it's not the case anymore, but that was the case. And you learn about a range of different things, and then you start making friends. So some of my closest friends now are from the Quidu groups from the early on, and they would be parenting coffee mornings. So we'd go to somebody's house, and then you would host one, etc., etc. And yeah, and so among those mothers, there are mothers breastfeeding older children.
Yes.
And so while I went into the journey of breastfeeding thinking, okay, I don't know, I want to do it, but I don't know how long I will last. And then I had the 6 month mark in my head, which brings me back to France. I'll talk about that. So, but then you see other mothers breastfeeding older children and talking about it, so it normalizes it completely. And then you're like, oh, so I don't need to stop at a certain time. And then I joined the extended breastfeeding group on Facebook. And again, it slowly just reassure you that you can just follow your lead and the baby's lead and keep going if you feel like keeping going. And it felt like something very special to me, because I don't know how to explain. I was making the decision. I wasn't listening to society telling me to stop, or so it was quite empowering. And yeah, we breastfed, like I actually stopped in 2019. So she was 4. If somebody had told me you're going to breastfeed for 4 years, I would have like, sorry, is that even possible? I had no idea when I started. And now it's just the most natural thing for me to do. But I think, yeah, being in contact with other mothers doing it is what made it possible. Otherwise, the messages sent to you are not, yes, go on and keep going. But you see, in France, even though you have the private room and you have all of those things, mothers go back to work generally around 3 months after birth. So at 2.5 months, or maybe 2 months, they start, thinking about childcare. And so breastfeeding rates in France maybe are high, but I don't know if many go past the 3 months or go past the 6 months. I do not know anybody in France. Now, I haven't lived in France for a long time, but I don't know. No, I do know. I know one that breastfed, I did extended breastfeeding. So even my mom, as a midwife, had a view that after a certain time, it's not for the baby, it's for the mother, or it's, I don't know, she said things to me that were like, I think you need to read a little bit more about breastfeeding. Have a little read.
Yes.
And then she changed her view completely by seeing it happen. She's completely changed. That's, again, it normalized it to her. And yeah.
That's so funny, because in my family, like, my mom would have breastfed my brother until he was 2, but because I went to like 2.5, all of a sudden I was the abnormal one. Just for going that extra like 6 months. It's like, wait, are you sure? But he's over 2. And it's so funny, because it's just whatever's normal for someone is their normal. But when they see something else, and when they see someone else's normal and experience that, all of a sudden it can cross over, like you said with your mom, she was able to change her view because she saw what your relationship was like with your daughter and being able to feed her beyond 2 months or 3 months or whatever, so that's so amazing. I love that. And for anyone who thinks that, generations that are older than us cannot come around to new ideas, or they can't shift their thinking when it comes to things like breastfeeding or, whatever topic, I just don't think that that's true. I see it all the time that people change. I have a participant in the book who, she's photographed, it's her grandfather, it's her mother, it's her and her child, and they're all included because the grandfather wouldn't have been as supportive of his daughter when she was breastfeeding. But now, seeing his granddaughter breastfeed, he understands it at such a different level. And there was a lot more to it. There was what he saw his wife go through when she was breastfeeding, and that played into how he treated his daughter. But like, he's since come around and he is so supportive. So it's really fun to me to see the generations interact with one another. And I think for you and I, probably from a historical family history perspective, we probably really appreciate seeing those things too. So I don't know, I love that you've shared that story. Did you have anything else to add about it, or?
Oh, I could talk about it for hours. But I talked to my mom as a midwife for a while, because I said, as a healthcare, from her position as a healthcare provider to mothers who are in that very sensitive time right after birth, and I also have friends or family members that it didn't work out, and that such a fine line between making that mother feel bad about not being able to breastfeed, by saying, well, actually everyone can breastfeed and you can just give it another go and wait until day 3. And maybe that's not what they want to hear. Maybe they want to hear, it's okay if you don't breastfeed, you've tried. But at the same time, if you really want to breastfeed, that person giving you the permission to stop when maybe what you needed is just that little reassurance that you could. But that very fine line, it made me realize that it's not black and white. Yes. It takes those midwives and those nurses like training into how you would phrase everything. Like, everything you say will have such a major importance for that mom at that moment in time. And yeah, it can make or break a breastfeeding relationship, or also that trauma, that birth trauma we talk more about now. And so they need a lot of training and updated training, because things change and the knowledge change as well.
Yes. I'm thinking of a question in relation to actually you giving birth. And my question is, when you're packing your birth bag, did you also pack your camera?
Well, yeah, for the birth, yes, we had. Yeah. No, I was thinking, yeah. So for the birth, we had the camera, and my husband used it. However, back then, I didn't know much about birth photography, so I had not thought, it didn't even enter my mind to capture part of the labor. So I have zero photos of labor. It didn't even occur to me. Now that I'm more familiar with birth photography, I know that some photos could have been taken that I would absolutely cherish now. There's not, you don't just capture the baby coming out. There's just so much more.
Yeah.
But he took those first few seconds and minutes. So they're like beyond precious. And yeah. And then though on the first day when he came back, he didn't bring back my camera. And I was like, oh. So the whole first day of her life is just all phone snaps. And it's okay, fine.
Yeah. So my husband he took some photos of when I had my daughter, and we now have them like in a framed collage, and they're so meaningful to me. I'm so happy that I have those. Whereas with my son, I think I was planning for a home birth, so I hadn't even thought to pack a camera when we had to. I was in labor, so I was not thinking about any of that. So we don't have those beautiful, like, proper professional photographs of my son shortly after birth, but we have them with my daughter, and I cherish them. So I was curious to see what your experiences were like. We have spoken a lot about motherhood, so I'm going to shift away from that just for a little bit and actually talk about your own book. So you have done a book as well. So can you talk to us about that?
Yeah, so that's a completely different subject, away from families. It was a personal project I did in 2018 as part of a year-long mentorship class. And I chose the Century Community Gardens in Dublin as my subject because it was somewhere I really, really enjoy spending time in. So having the added excuse to be photographing it meant I went even more regularly, and I photographed the people working in there and also the flowers and the insects, and then came the time to just put it together. And my mentor said, like, it could be a book. And so then I went into creating a book, which was like, it's an entire new, like, full story. It's a lot of work, and it takes time, and the sequencing and the editing and the printing and the publishing and all of this. But I'm super proud to be able to say that yes, I have a book and I can hold it in my hands, and
what did the people that work in the gardens, like, what were their thoughts on the book or being able to see it once it was finished?
So the ones that got it absolutely love it. They say it's a great representation of the garden as a whole, like in terms of what that space means to them, because it's a place for a lot of people to where they feel happy, they feel grounded. It's like a mental health paradise, The only thing is that because of COVID, the garden has been closed since the book has been published, basically. So I haven't actually been able to go in, talk to them, show them the book or anything. So that's the downside of it. And I still have some copies left. So I'm just waiting until I can just go in and have a bit more of a sharing experience around it.
Well, we'll talk at the end about where people can find you, and so we'll add that in about the book as well. But you mentioned something that was really important there. You mentioned mentorship whenever you're going through the book, the process, and you actually ended up making a book. And in a prior episode of the podcast, I was talking with Maria Matani, Photography, and she and I were talking about you and how you so generously give of yourself from that mentor capacity. And so I would love to know, is that something that you experienced that you're paying forward? Is that something that you just felt called to do? Where does that come from? Because sometimes, people would wonder, like, why are you even sitting down and chatting with another photographer? Is that not your competition? And I would love to hear from you why you have felt safe in being a mentor to others.
I have to say, I never put the name mentor to it, like, because it was such unofficial capacity. I think it's just when I started working on the business, there's so many resources out there. And I got you probably had it too, and we probably all go through it. We get a little bit all consumed with it for a while, and we consume everything, all the resources and the groups and the information and the education. And you know, I suppose we start breaking from like just the photography side and we go into the business side. It brings up a lot of things, and it's hard and confusing and overwhelming. And so when I started learning more about it and understanding a lot more about it, the marketing and the sales and the pricing, and then I would see someone at the stage where I was at only 6 months before, and if I knew the answer or I could help, I couldn't stop it. It's like, I can't let someone struggle willingly. It's not me. Nowadays, I don't have time for it anymore. I actually just stepped nearly out of all the groups and all the education, and I'm in a much different place where now that all those foundations are laid, I feel a bit exhausted by it, and I couldn't imagine go in the group just to help people. That I know that this wouldn't serve me doing it this way, but when you're in it, when it's part of your everyday and you're learning from others, then it felt just natural to give it back. Yeah, as you said.
Yes, I love that so much. And I feel similarly. And actually, because of your approach and because you reaching out to help me, like I definitely now feel just so at ease when I pay it forward to someone else. It just feels natural, and it feels like the next step, the next progression. It's like you pass on the kindness and the few words of wisdom, and then they pass it on to the next person, and it just keeps going, and it has this positive ripple effect. So I'm so grateful to you, because the two things that they seemed so small, but the two things that you actually helped me with were so pivotal in what I've gone on to build. And so I just wanted to express my own gratitude and say thank you, just personally. I think that I probably have said thank you, but it will never be enough. So thank you one more time. Thank you.
I'm so glad, because like it was you asking a question onto a bigger group, and sometimes those bigger groups, the questions can just go unnoticed. So I think I just didn't want it to go unnoticed and unanswered, and also give you the confidence to go for something, because I knew it could work. But I remember for the logo, it was like, you don't know if you're stepping, and you don't want to reach out to someone saying, by the way, this is not really working. But but I think we had talked about something else, and I felt more confident to say, look, by the way, I think this would really help,
Yes.
And that's because I was a graphic designer as well. So it was my graphic designer hat. I couldn't let it.
Well, and it's like, now we get to laugh about it later, because now I've built a course around branding. And for people who don't know, like, I had a different logo at the very, very, very beginning of Whole Fed Photography, and you couldn't read it. And Johanna so kindly reached out and she said, just by the way, like, it's very hard to read your logo. You might just give it a bit of thought. And I've gone on to build an actual brand. I've gone on to build something that has a life of its own and has a personality of its own. And I really, you reaching out to say that helped me with giving it that direction. And so now, like, the funny thing is building the brand belief course. It's like,
I know.
It's like, I might not have gone on to do that had you not reached out.
That's it. It's like you were able to receive it as well. That means like, I just planted that little seed, but somebody could have just gone and created another logo that you still couldn't read or something, but you took it and you just brought it to exactly something so strong and simple, and that could last the time, well, you were ready.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. And I appreciate the inspiration to have me go on and help other people now, because it's such a joy for me to be able to do that when the occasion arises. And it's not that I necessarily think back to those moments, but that's definitely where it comes from, just that ease and that flow with being able to help if I know that I can help, or if I have an answer, or if it's within my capacity to do so, then I do so. And actually, you're a part of a photography organization that does have a lot of resources for photographers and videographers. So actually, could you speak about that as well?
So yes, I joined the IPPVA, so it's the Irish Professional Photographers and Videographers Association. It used to be IPPA, which was a bit less of a mouthful. It's open to professional photographers and videographers with a certain level of quality of work and insurance. So the idea is to have a network. It has awards, and we've just launched a new website, and there are going to be more and more resources. I'm trying to think of all the things we have behind there. There's some education opportunities. And I suppose the support of the group, being able to just go into the Facebook group and ask a question that, all the photography groups are different. Well, when you ask a group of professionals, you know that you're going to get a different answer than if you ask another kind of photography group. So, and also it's Irish, and the education out there, like the most of the education is not from Ireland. It's either from the States or from the UK, which is amazing and applies to Ireland in a lot of cases. But then there are a lot of other cases, which might be, the accountancy, the taxes, copyright law, or issues with a contract or anything that you need that local resource. And and the awards are brilliant. They're really hard, especially for a documentary family photographer, because the category that I could submit to with the portrait category, which is a really competitive category with really amazing work from portrait photographers. So I did get some documentary images awarded in it, and it feels like, woohoo, it's like I won, even just getting one award in that category is like winning. And then there was the wedding documentary category, which was a little bit easier for me to get in, but now I don't photograph weddings anymore, so I'm I'm out of the game. Now it's like I would encourage people to join, to be able to be a part of a Irish community of photographers and videographers. No matter what, it's just amazing to have that local support, and the more people involved, because it's all voluntary based. So I'm on the council right now, where we're all volunteers, and the more people we have helping and bringing ideas and giving of their time, then the more we can do. So during COVID, we were able to lobby for photographers and videographers of Ireland, and this is not something we can do as individuals because we don't have the resources. So
Yes, I was just thinking about how important the group was for going through COVID and navigating the restrictions and what photographers needed to do to be able to protect themselves and their clients and all of those things. So it's amazing to know that the group is there and that it can be of service to photographers and videographers here in Ireland. Because like you said, it is different, like even just down to the first thing my mind went to was like VAT and all the different VAT rates and just all of those things that you don't necessarily know when you're just starting out, but when you're in the professional realm, you have to know.
So. Yes, that would be one of the things that
Oh, okay. So I'm curious to know, you mentioned, being in a group with amazing photographers, and who are photographers that inspire you, and why do they inspire you? What is it about them or their work that inspires you?
So I thought a little bit about that, because I didn't want to just go and blurt out a name and then forget a lot of people. So it's really hard for me to give specific names because there are so many. But what I would say is in 2018 and since, I've taken classes or gone to a conference or done retreats with colleagues, like photographers we're all on the same level, and we all photograph families and then do other things, and following them, making friends with them and following them and keeping in touch. I'm just inspired by seeing them push their work further. And most of them have actually started embracing other areas of photography, more creative, or not more creative, sorry, more conceptual work, and documentary, long form, or photojournalism, or other area of photography. So actually it's just or publishing books or creating exhibitions. All of this is inspiring me. So just to see that they're doing it then inspire me to keep my mind open and trying new things and all of those.
If there are any photographers who are either just starting out or maybe they're just at the beginning phases of their journey and they are in that phase of comparing themselves, like maybe they're comparing their chapter 1 to someone else's chapter 20 or chapter 10, what words of wisdom would you offer to them about that?
It's that's what you said. Like, it's okay to follow other photographers and be inspired by their work, but just to remind yourself constantly that you don't know how long they've been working, how many hours they've put into their business to get where they are now. And I can tell you, it's a lot. So there's no quick fix. I wish when I started that somebody had told me, when you hear someone say it usually takes about 3 years for a business to establish itself. I wish somebody told me that earlier on, because I put a lot of pressure on myself from the first year. Just take your time. There's no quick fix. Now, yes, there are some photographers that just start out and bang, the following year they're all famous and they have inquiries that they can't take and everything. But that's not the norm. Most people will just go through the process of getting their brand established and practicing their work and getting better, and don't lose hope. And maybe to keep another job or a side job for a while, rather than just give it all up and start being a photographer, might be a little bit risky.
Any other top tips for people who are just starting out, or they're thinking maybe COVID has inspired them, or maybe having children has inspired them to pick up a camera and they think, actually, I'd like to make this a business? What would you say to people in that headspace?
If they wanted to make it as a business, they will have to educate themselves on the business side of things. I wouldn't start a business and just pick a pricing out of thin air and just go and start photographing clients. However, there are so many resources out there that I would recommend picking one, maybe, just to find your source of education. And there are a lot of really amazing sources of education that are not necessarily documentary on business, and just maybe focus on one for a while, and then maybe, and mentoring is amazing. And it feels expensive when you start out, because obviously if you're not already making money from your business, it's hard to imagine spending all of that money into mentoring. However, it's a bit like a fast track compared to education. Education, you could spend a whole year and get a bit lost, and you reach that stage. I'm sure everyone went through it, but I went through it, where you're like, please tell me what to do. I cannot read any more articles about pricing and marketing. They all contradict each other. Tell me what I should do and I will do it. And so the mentor, like a good mentor, won't tell you exactly what to do, but they're going to tell you what they did, what they would do. They're going to ask you the right questions, and they're going to guide you through the steps. Or a coach. I know they're different. Mentoring and coaching are very different, and one will work, for different people. But somebody who's going to bring you along and help you get things done without getting completely overwhelmed is just priceless. So I did, in 2017, I did invest in my business, money that I didn't necessarily think I had, but it paid itself like multiple times. It's a difficult decision to make, but one you usually won't regret.
I love that. I'm actually having one of my mentors on the show in a couple of weeks. His episode will be on in June. And I so agree that sometimes it can feel like such an investment up front, but it's just that, it's an investment. And it's one that if you choose a very aligned mentor who has the experience to offer and the knowledge to offer, will pay dividends. So I'm so excited to have him on, because I've come so far since I was being mentored by him, but it's so huge. And I wholeheartedly agree. And I feel like I'm in the lucky position that I'm in love with photography, but I've also fallen in love with the business side, and I love them both, and they work symbiotically. They work well together. So
you found the right balance.
Eventually, but like you say, everyone goes through their journey, and it's a process. So yes. So Johanna, this is a question that I ask everyone that comes on the show, and that is, we're all about living life in a way that outlives us. So I'm curious to know, particularly with you being an artist and with you being able to create physical pieces of art that will outlive probably your clients and probably you, what type of legacy are you hoping to leave behind, either through, the person that you're being, the art you're creating, or the parenting that you're doing? What do you hope to leave behind amongst it all?
I will say that while I think when I photograph clients, I leave something, as you said, that kind of outlive them. I recently felt like I was nearly too small of a reach. It's a huge reach for each of those families, but it's like a small reach. There's so many families I can actually photograph myself, that I've started teaching parents to do it for themselves.
Yes.
And oh my gosh, the reward I'm getting now from them getting those shifts in perspectives and embrace, it's just mind-blowing. Giving them some tools and questions and seeing them come back saying, wow, I didn't know that, and I just figured this out, and so ideally I would like every single child in the world to be able to have those photographs, whether they have a professional photographer or not, because let's be honest, not everybody can afford it. And I don't think it's fair, because with phones now, parents can also do a pretty good job. So I just want to empower them and, help them do that for themselves. And it's easier to spread the love wider through knowledge than trying to photograph everyone.
Is that your make time to stand still, not your kids?
Yes.
I love that. I love the name of it as well. So that is amazing. That is a beautiful initiative to be able to spread the love and make sure that other people can capture those photographs, even if they're not investing in a professional photographer to do it. And I'm curious to know, like, if people want to get in touch with you about something like your course or your book, or to hire you for a photo session, where can they actually find you?
So the best way is to go to johannakingphotography.com and just have a look around, and then get in touch through the contact form.
Okay, brilliant. And would you also share your social media links, just in case someone wants to find you on Instagram or Facebook?
So on Facebook and Instagram, it's Johanna King Photography.
Okay, perfect. Simple enough. Any last words?
No, that's it. I'm talked out. Thank you so much for having me. It was my first podcast.
Well, I'm so happy to have been your first podcast episode. That's amazing. And thank you so much for coming on. Thank you for being just a beautiful soul. Thank you for sharing your artistry with me and my own family. We cherish our photographs. So happy to have had you along for my journey, both as our family photographer and as a friend and fellow, photographer going through the business side of things. It has just been amazing. You mean so much to me and our family, and thank you for coming on the show.
Thank you so much.
We hope you've enjoyed the show. Please feel free to leave a comment or a review to let us know what you loved about this episode and others like it. And if you'd like to be featured on our show, or if you know of someone who would be an amazing guest, get in touch with us at info@wellfedphotography.com and mention Living a Life Well Fed in the subject line.